Welcome to Therapy Explained, where we explain, demystify, and destigmatize mental health and mental health treatment. My name is Deniss. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and your very own mental health cheerleader. Today, in honor of Father's Day, we're going to be talking about the power of our fathers on our mental health, or basically how our dads affect our mental health. Now, we've already had this conversation about our moms last month, so if you're curious and you would like to find out a little bit more about that, make sure to check out that video. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into that video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you end up liking it, and remember to subscribe if you're not already. We all are aware and have a pretty good idea of how our relationship with our parents affects our lives. We probably already know that, but really breaking it down into the different ways in which our dad affects our mental health has shaped it, whether that's a biological father, an adoptive father, or a father figure, can be very helpful for us when we're talking about our mental health and healing our wounds. Knowing what it is the first step to being able to address it. So today we're going to be going through different ways in which our dads, father figures, biological fathers, or just our dads, help shape our mental health, our physical and biological health. This is similar, but not exactly in the same way that our moms shape our mental health and our biological, physiological well-being. But our studies show that our father's reproductive health will affect our biological development in our mother's womb. And what that really means is that the health of our father's sperm, which is affected by the way that our dad feeds himself, takes care of himself, his overall health, will affect the development of his sperm, and therefore the sperm in which we get our DNA and biological information from. So that will shape our development in our mother's womb after we start growing. So even at that molecular level, our dad has power over us. And I'm speaking particularly about a biological father, but of course also during pregnancy. And this applies to, yes, our biological father if he is in the picture or if they are in the picture, but it also applies to our adoptive father, our father figure, that person that takes on that role for us. Their relationship with our mom while our mom is pregnant will affect us as well. Remember from our video about how our moms affect our mental health, we talked about how whatever our mom lives through, we live through it because we're part of their biological system, which means that their nervous system, any hormones that they're experiencing, any physical, emotional, psychological trauma that they're living through, any stress, we're going to feel it too, because feelings are hormones, right? Feelings are an emotional reaction, a physical reaction to their world around them. And because we're part of that system, we will feel it too. We will get those hormones. We will get those stress hormones or that anxiety. So if our father or father figure is the one that is affecting our mom, whether that's good or bad, helping her feel safe, supported, and loved, or resulting in doing behaviors that result in our mom feeling afraid or heartbroken, sad, scared, angry, we are going to feel that too. So that is how our fathers affect our health, even in our own mother's womb. Future relationships. We've talked about this in the past, but remember that our biological parents are off the bat the first two connections to the world that we ever have. So if our biological father sticks around or not to develop a meaningful relationship in some way, that will also affect us. This shapes our expectation of relationships in general, like how do we interact with people? What can we come to expect from people? What is love? What is respect? What do we do with our emotions? How do we express our needs? All of that is going to be shaped by our relationship with our father and whether or not our biological father stuck around. If you want to know a little bit more about that, I talked about attachment and attachment styles, which is rooted in our relationship with our parents in another video, so go ahead and check that out. Our self-identity. As we go through our stages of development, we are figuring out who we are, particularly during teenagehood. Who are we is usually then based off who we are not, and we get to know who we can and can't be, or should and shouldn't be, based on our parents and the people around us. So our father will be one of those examples. Whatever we see from them, we will use as, yes, I want to be more like this person, or actually I would definitely not want to be that person, or at least parts of that person. We use our parents as, again, that first example, and then as we develop our own identity and sense of self, we are looking at that example for who we want to be. Sometimes we develop this self-awareness early on, and we're able to pick at that and actually consciously say, I don't want to be like my parent, or I do want to be like my parent. But other times it just kind of happens. Again, they're the first example. They teach us everything about the world. So your father might be shaping your sense of self, your sense of being, who you want to be, without even realizing it. You might have certain behaviors or expectations or views of the world that came strictly from your father and that you didn't really question, because again, we're supposed to trust our parents. Whatever they teach us about the world, we believe it because they've been here for longer than us, and biologically we're wired to be able to trust our parents. So even the violation of that trust will change the expectation that we have about relationships, which kind of goes to that last point. Self-love and self-esteem. Now this is connected to that attachment theory that I spoke to a little bit a few points ago. And what we mean by how does our dad affect, or father affect our sense of like our self-esteem and our self-love? Well, our parents are the first example, again, of what love is. If your dad was loving and caring, affectionate, respectful, that is what you will then internalize, and that's how you will treat yourself. You will be kind to yourself, you will root for yourself, you will be able to identify your strengths and give credit to yourself, you'll be kinder. The way that you talk to yourself will also be much more positive if you've had that example growing up. But if you haven't, then that's going to affect your internal world, how you feel about yourself. And again, if we didn't grow up with our biological father, then we are probably going to have that underlining everything else that we do, and particularly our self-esteem, whether that is that the fact that our biological father wasn't around, and that affects our ability to feel lovable, whether again it's something that we are consciously aware of or not, then it's going to affect the way that we talk to ourselves and also the way that we interact with other people. Remember, our self-esteem is going to inform how we present and what parts of ourselves we kind of show and how we show up with other people. So our self-esteem, our sense of love, will go back to how our parents, particularly for today's conversation, how our father treated us, our biological father, our adoptive father, or chosen father. So whatever that may be for you, that relationship, the way that they treat you, will communicate to you your lovability and your worthiness, whether or not you're conscious of it. Gender roles and gender norms. Because we live in a binary world, our role of our father in the family versus the role of our mother in our family will shape our expectations of what our role is going to be in society if we choose one of these identities, male or female, if we choose to. Or it might also shape our decision not to identify with either one of these based on the experiences that we've had growing up. The role that our father plays as a man, that example that we get of what it means to be a man, will shape how we expect other men in our lives to respond, to act, to behave. And if we choose to identify as a man, then we will also then shape our behavior, our sense of self, our identity, our expectations to that as well. And we will also use the example of how our father treats other people in how we should be treating other people, or perhaps even if we have that kind of self-awareness or response, how not to treat some people. We receive implicit and explicit messages from our father, from our mother, from our parents all the time. We might not be conscious of what things are being said, again, whether that's like verbally telling you this is your expectation, this is how you treat the world, this is what you can expect from the world, whether or not it's something that they're literally telling us, and whether or not we're even aware of it, it is shaping our expectations of the world. If you grow up in a home where women are the ones that cook and clean and take care of everyone, and the man is the one that takes care of the plumbing and the cars and the hard work, hard labor, that is what you will come to expect of those two genders, or that, again, growing up within that binary. But if you're growing up in a home where those are interchangeable, where maybe you don't grow up in a home that is binary, which is actually kind of rare for our generation. I think that's kind of happening more for younger generations than it has for us. And particularly if you belong to a BIPOC community, you will definitely see these gender norms. And this is what's shaping our sense of self and our expectations of the world. It shapes our relationships. As you can see, our relationship with our fathers, biological or otherwise, will shape those expectations of fathers, of men, of people in general. Remember, these are the first relationships that we ever have. So it sets the basis for everything else that comes after it. If you are struggling with healing your father wound, if going through these things makes you realize all the ways in which perhaps your father has hurt you, then I highly encourage you to maybe start that journey today. Start to make room for the feelings that have come up for you during today's video. That's a good place to start. It's a long journey. I do have a video on healing parental wounds that might be helpful for you, and I encourage you to check it out. But remember that most of our parents, of our fathers, of our mothers, aren't necessarily bad people. They may be flawed. They are human at the end of the day. They've done things that have hurt us, maybe some things that haven't been as bad and maybe even good. And learning to accept our parents as human beings, flawed human beings, is the first step to healing, because that allows us to reduce the amount of anger and resentment that we have towards them and start to invest our time and energy in healing ourselves. Because what our parents do, what their journey is completely out of our control. Knowing what our parents are or what their limits are doesn't mean that they're going to want to work on them. The only thing that we can do is work on ourselves, protect ourselves, heal ourselves. And I know that you can do it. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, as always, I'm cheering for you.